Welcome to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. Like any good marriage, we will debate, evaluate, and sometimes quarrel about how privacy and security impact business in the 21st century.
Hi, Jody Daniels here. I'm founder and CEO of Red Clover Advisors, a certified women's privacy consultancy. I'm a privacy consultant and certified informational privacy professional providing practical privacy advice to overwhelmed companies.
Hi, I am Justin Daniels. I am a shareholder and corporate M&A and tech transaction lawyer at the law firm Baker Donaldson, advising companies in the deployment and scaling of technology. Since data is critical to every transaction, I help clients make informed business decisions while managing data privacy and cybersecurity risk. And when needed, I lead the legal cyber data breach response brigade.
This episode is brought to you by Red Clover Advisors. We help companies to comply with data privacy laws and establish customer trust so that they can grow and nurture integrity. We work with companies in a variety of fields, including technology, e-commerce, professional services, and digital media. In short, we use data privacy to transform the way companies do business. Together, we're creating a future where there's greater trust between companies and consumers. To learn more and to check out our best-selling book, Data Reimagined, Building Trust One Bite at a Time, visit redcloveradvisors.com. Well, hello. They say that you learn something new every day, and I'm very excited to learn or to share that I learned how to find the original ratio setting in Zoom today. And it's just sometimes the really small things that make me happy.
I'm impressed. Why don't you share? You should share that picture with the dog in his shades.
Oh, yes. And then this morning, for those of you, well, actually, we haven't even shared on our podcast. Our dog had life-saving surgery a couple weeks ago. And as part of the recovery, has to have laser therapy in which both the dog and the humans have to wear glasses. And I snapped a picture of our dog Basil wearing his special glasses. And he looks like Hollywood dog. Justin pointed out. The good news for all of you listening is, yes, our dog is recovering and doing well.
And my job in the next life is to come back as my wife's pet instead of her husband. Much better treatment.
All right, but we're going to talk about privacy and security. Actually, we're going to talk about security today.
Yes, we are, because we're going to talk to one of our fellow IANS faculty members. So today we have David Kennedy, who is the CEO of TrustedSec. He is also the founder and CEO of Binary Defense at TrustedSec. He is considered an industry leader in cybersecurity. He is a former chief security officer of Diebold. David has led global cybersecurity teams, testified before Congress, and shaped cybersecurity policy. He co-authored the Penetration Testing Execution Standard and is renowned in offensive security. A Marine with intelligence experience, he prioritizes family, fitness, and co-hosts the Hacking Your Health podcast. So the bottom line here is we are going to the real source of cybersecurity expertise. David, welcome. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me on today. It's really a pleasure. And the dog story put a nice smile on my face. I have 2 boxers at home, so I love animals. They're the best.
The animals are the best.
And I would agree. My dog gets better treatment than me, so I could agree with you.
They go first, just as much as they should. Okay, back to you, David. So we always like to understand how people's careers have evolved. If you can walk us through your journey, we would love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. I started my career off very early on. I was always interested in technology. I remember having a Teddy Ruxpin that I had that my parents got me, and I lived in a lower income family household, inner city schools, didn't always have a lot of technology. And I remember when I first got my Teddy Ruxpin, the first thing I did was completely tear the whole thing apart to figure out how it worked. And then I had to reassemble it again to get it all working again. Because I always had that wanting to have an understanding around how things actually work. And so I, went from there, went into the military intelligence side of the house. I was in the United States Marine Corps. I did 2 deployments to Iraq for intelligence related missions, spent a number of years in the Middle East, and then got out and, really homed in my craft on cybersecurity. I was in a small consulting shop for a little while, then became the chief security officer at Diebold. And then the funny story behind that is I was at Diebold. I was the youngest VP and chief security officer in Diebold history, and decided one day I came home and my wife had just had twins. And I said, hey, honey, I think we need to start a company. I'm going to start my own business, and had no idea what I was doing, had no idea how to start an LLC or anything like that. As I'm sure you can probably relate, when you first go into this, you have no idea what you're doing, but knew that I wanted to help other companies and organizations get better with cybersecurity, and really kind of took it from there. And so it's been a Been great. I mean, between TrustedSec and Binary Defense, we have close to 400 employees worldwide, and we continue to expand and do amazing things and helping people out. And that's really been our mission, which is our motto in both companies is to make the world a safer place. And when you have a good mission statement like that, it's kind of hard to not believe in that and move it forward and really try to help others.
Love that mission statement. Can't speak today.
So, David, one of the things that I find interesting about your background is, can you talk a little bit about how do you think your military background might influence your approach to cybersecurity?
Yeah, for me, I was I was always an overweight kid growing up, and I think when I got into the military, it put a really amazing structure in place, ways that I can tackle complex situations and break it down to be more simple and to really leverage that mission. You hear in the military a lot, the mission. And that's really kind of how I look at life as well is, it's one big mission and I have to take different things and kind of execute on that. And so for me, the military was really one of the more foundational pieces that I really attribute, a lot of my success to, but also kind of my outlook on life. I had kind of a near-death experience when I was in Iraq, and, that put things into perspective quite a bit. And so I try to live every day to its fullest, knowing that, might not be here every single day. And the military really gave me that backing, a lot of the discipline, the ability to take complex problems. And also, one of the, I think, big superhero strengths that I have is that I don't let small things really get to me. It's the big things that I'm trying to solve and work day to day to try to accomplish, what we're trying to accomplish here at Binary Defense and TrustedSec, but also in my life and my family, everything else. It's all, putting it into big picture and trying to execute on that.
I think a lot of people could learn. Do you have maybe a tip or a hack of how you let those small things roll past and able to keep that big picture?
I think it's a learned trait. You have to practice it. There have definitely been times where, I've typed out an email that I know I'm going to regret, but I just type it out and I don't hit the send button. It's one tactic that can get you kind of started, right? At least, vent a little bit. But, for me, it's trying to put things into perspective. Like, hey, maybe one of my kids gets in a car accident, right? But he's fine and the car's fine. And, it's something that, it sucks, but, at the end of the day, it's not going to be, catastrophic to our family or things like that. So I always just try to put it into yes, we have parts of our brain, we have the kind of the animal part of our brain that responds to things very fast. And then we have a more logical brain. And I try to let my logical brain take over as much as possible, then kind of responding to immediate things that happen at a given time. And it's just a practicing thing. For me, actually, I have something that I created called the Rule of 5. And in the morning, I type out 5 things before I look at email, before I see what's going on for the day, 5 things that I need to accomplish every single day that are important to me to hit those objectives. And it can be small things like make sure I go and get a lift in, at the gym, or, make sure that I follow up to this specific person or reach out to an employee that I haven't talked to in a while. But that Rule of 5 to me keeps me, focused on the 5 things that are most important for that day before the fires come in the office, before certain things hit me. And that kind of lets me be, very categorical of what I actually look for and what I actually execute on throughout the day. Those are the most important things, not the day-to-day fires that come through.
I guess, David, the other thing I wanted to ask you, given your military service and being in Iraq, and I've met other people, is given that, how much can a data breach situation that's highly pressurized, how much would that phase you given the things that you've dealt with? I always feel like someone in the military who's been in that situation, it's like after that, it's like, what in life can possibly phase you?
I think you hit a really good point there. I think that's also how I'm able to put, smaller things that happen into perspective, right? When you're in a wartime situation, you don't know if you're going to make it the next day. I remember when I was in Iraq, I don't smoke cigarettes, but when I was in Iraq, I'm like, well, hey, I'm probably going to die anyway. So I'm going to smoke some cigarettes just so I can go outside and, get a breath of fresh air and hang out. And I quit that as soon as I left, by the way. But, it's the small things that I think you can, rationalize a little bit more because you have life experiences that have hit you that are much larger in nature. And so when I look at certain, problems or issues, especially that you mentioned a data breach, for me, it's I understand that the people that are going through the data breach are under an extreme amount of pressure. It's impacting the organization. It's impacting employees. It's impacting, profitability. It's impacting a lot of aspects of their day-to-day lives. And I'm sympathetic to that. So I can recognize, hey, this person lashing out or being upset or mean isn't really them. It's the situation that has been created and we're there to help them out. And at the end of the day, once everything's, blown over and everything's kind of restructured and everything's good, they're going to come out there in a much better place. And so I always look at the long-term objective of that, of, 10 situations, requires you to be on your game and to be, fully committed to it. But at the same time, recognizing that, hey, high stress situations create, different dichotomies of people in different situations, and people handle stress in different ways. And I'm very sympathetic to that.
It's funny you say that, because try not to laugh, but I've actually been watching Ted Lasso, which Jody watched a while back. And one of the things he says, and I think, David, this is what you're really saying, is don't judge somebody in their worst moment or their best moment, because it's just a moment.
That's
Look
right.
at the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And that's a good lesson. Ted Lasso is awesome. And definitely funny guy. But
you quoting Ted Lasso a couple years after I told you to watch it, but better late than never.
Anyway, well, David, now we kind of want to shift a little bit and talk about your businesses. So talk to us a little bit about what challenges does TrustedSec and Binary Defense solve in the cybersecurity marketplace? What is the claim to fame there?
Yeah. So for us, TrustedSec is a security consulting company. We pretty much focus on, everything from penetration testing, application security, physical assessments, all the way to GRC work, PCI compliance, building security programs, things like that. And really what I wanted to accomplish with Binary Defense is to have an amazing team where we're always doing amazing things for our customers to build their security programs. We recognize, this industry is very difficult, right? You have a high churn rate of people coming in and out. It's very difficult to establish large security programs. And so for us, it was really trying to take a lot of the complexities out of building your security program and having the expertise here that, you can actually rely off of us. And then at Binary Defense, one of the biggest challenges I think that most organizations face is understanding when a data breach occurs. If you look at a lot of the data statistics, what we call dwell time, how long an attacker has in their environment before they break out to other systems and then before they're actually detected, it can go weeks, months, longer than that. And so for us, it was really to solve the monitoring and detection complexities in cybersecurity and really provide, that detection engineering, threat hunting, threat intelligence, all into one unified area where we're always looking and got the customers back, where we recognize maybe they don't have a full-blown security operations center, or maybe they're a small to medium-sized business and can't afford that, or they're a larger enterprise and they want to augment us for our expertise. It's really, back to that mission of making the world a safer place, making it as easy as possible for companies, whether they're in the healthcare space protecting life, water treatment facilities, the electrical grid, corporations and banks, where we service pretty much any industry vertical, really trying to help them out. And that's one of the areas that I really enjoy is the teams that I get to work with, my team that I get to work with day in and day out. They're just amazing folks, amazing individuals, believe in that mission and really just put the best foot forward, trying to help these companies and organizations as they struggle.
Well, we have to talk privacy. And we are finding more and more CISOs and security teams are being anointed or taking on some part of privacy, whether it's the whole thing or privacy operations. And some of the privacy laws are also helping security teams because many of them have some flavor of you must make sure data is secure. In some places, there's private right of action. From your perspective, how is the privacy landscape impacting security professionals and security programs?
Yeah, good question. Well, one thing, we don't specifically specialize in any way, shape, or form for privacy. So we would go to like your folks like Red Clover to do that type of work, and it's very specialized in nature and niche. That's awesome. That's an area that definitely needs a lot of expertise and specialty. What's interesting if you look at, I think GDPR was kind of really the first ever type of compliance that really impacted privacy within, an entire country. And then you look at, well, I guess more than just the country, but all Europe. And then you start to look at what we're trying to accomplish here in the United States. I think it's been very privacy lacking in many cases around the consumer data, customer data, intellectual property, everything else that goes along with it. And we're starting to get better at that, which, when you start looking at the controls you have to have in place to really protect that data, that drastically impacts the security program. Organizations and companies have to do better at protecting consumer data, have to do better at protecting their own intellectual property, their employee data, everything else that comes along with that. And then how that type of information is sent, used in every single business process that the organization has. And I think, we're really starting to see the cusp of that take place here in the United States, where we're seeing more and more organizations really have dedicated either privacy officers, folks that are in charge of those roles to really try to build out those programs, or leveraging folks like yourself to come in and help build out those programs. Absolutely critical for an information security program, period. and one that has been, oftentimes, I think a lot of people look at cybersecurity as a technical issue. In many cases, while some of that is, of course, there's a lot of other elements that make that security program successful. The governance program, the privacy program, all of those play directly into that cybersecurity program to make it successful.
Yeah, it's very much, I'm sure you would agree, a business priority. And I'm glad you mentioned the governance piece, because there's technical, but there's policies, there's process, there's people. And I always say that privacy and security, they work best when they're really working together.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Both sides.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, there's another thread that I wanted to pull on with you a little bit, because I think you are our first guest that has ever testified in front of Congress, and wanted to just ask you, what's it like to testify in front of Congress and security members? Do members of Congress demonstrate even a basic understanding of security issues?
Yeah, that's a long rabbit hole. We'll do the TLDR type of version. One thing is, I probably will never testify again. I did it twice, and this was around the release of healthcare.gov. And when healthcare.gov got released, the thing that I noticed was that the website had a lot of trouble even staying operational, like running. And usually, if you're in security or in IT, if you don't have a good disaster recovery plan or load balancing or ways to actually keep that server up and running, security probably was a second thought on that, right? If you don't even have performance and stability. And so, I started doing some open source intelligence gathering and found, that the website was just riddled with old, legacy applications and dependencies, and the site was just really vulnerable. And my discussion to Congress was not necessarily specific on healthcare.gov, but it was how the government approaches building these systems that contain a lot of personal data, and we're not putting the right controls in place to really protect that data. And yes, we have NIST and we have 800-53 and a bunch of others that help structure a security program, but in many cases, they're farming these out to third party big development shops. There's no security testing or coding into that. And so my first testimony was really about how the government really needs to look at security instead of looking at it as a car part and going to the cheapest bidder. They need to incorporate budget and to be able to introduce good security practices and regular testing into those to ensure that our personal information is protected, but also, government secrets and things like that. I mean, we've seen so many data breaches that we know that are public. If you look at OPM, for example, I was impacted by that because I had a top secret clearance. Those types of things need to be restructured. And the first testimony, I think, went really well. The second one, it was perceived as a political statement because it was around the same time, President Obama was dubbed Obamacare, right? And so it was looked at as an attack against healthcare.gov and the Obamacare as a whole. So it became I became a wedge in the middle between two political parties, and I was there completely not repping any political party whatsoever, and just trying to help with the case of building security in the government. And it was pretty fiery. If you ever get you can still download it. It was on C-SPAN, as recorded, and it got super fiery during those. I mean, I was getting yelled at and screamed at, and a bunch of other things. And I was just there to help and try to make things better. And it definitely didn't go the way that I would have anticipated. I held my own. I had a lot of data, a lot of facts, and I just stuck to the facts and stuck to the what I know in this industry. I kept away from any political area. But to your comment there, they have a kindergarten level of understanding of technology. And really where, they have strength is their staffers that may have some sort of technical prowess, but the senators and congressmen and women, they really have no clue when it comes to understanding technology and how that fits into the broader picture around how to even secure that. And so that's a big deficiency that we have currently today in our legislative branch, is really trying to get them to understand the importance of this. And so I've spent a lot of time not testifying in front of Congress, but meeting with various senators and congressmen and women to really try to help forward cybersecurity policy to help them out. So I'm on the backside of it now, trying to work with them and giving them knowledge. And it's great that they're open to feedback, but they need a lot of work. They need a lot of help. That's for sure.
Well, I'm curious, David, given your particular background, and you're also a dad, we're watching this debate around TikTok. We now have DeepSeek come out. And one of the things that I worry about is, well, what if China has this in place and they say, yeah, we're going to go across the Taiwan Strait, invade Taiwan, and then we're going to use this entire network plus the AI to be a huge mis and disinformation program to basically get international acquiescence or support for what we're doing. And I just would love to know from your perspective, as a dad, someone who knows security, also been in the military. What do we, as a society or just people need to be thinking about when we're hearing all this stuff around TikTok and DeepSeek and how it can be used in ways that are just pretty scary?
Yeah, what was interesting is if you actually went to DeepSeek's web UI, not their local language model, not their local LLM, but their actual website at DeepSeek, and you put in the chat query, and you say, if the Chinese government requests any of the information that I'm submitting, will you give it to them? And the answer was yes, absolutely. So you have to look at where this data is going, what everybody's doing, and TikTok being one of the most prominent social media sites, being predominantly owned by the Chinese government as well as ByteDance. Those are major concerns because they control the server data, they control what they collect, they control what goes to the government, they control the algorithms that go along with that. And so, it's a very powerful tool when, if they tweak the algorithm just a little bit to show more pro-Chinese or more pro-misinformation, things like that, it can definitely sway public opinion one way or the other. And we've seen that being used across the board. We saw it during the election processes with Russian influence. It's a very large tool that a lot of these countries have fully dedicated cyber divisions just for this type of impact of the population here and its perceived use of certain things. So I see it as a major issue. For me personally, as a dad, I don't allow any of my kids to have any social media. I finally broke down a lot of them have Snapchat because the teams, like the volleyball team and the basketball team, they all communicate through Snapchat. I was very upset that I had to do it, but we did it. But I've also really communicated with my kids the importance of that responsibility and what that actually means. Just the other day, my youngest son, Mason, 14 years old, came to me and he's like, "Dad, I think I messed up. I think I got hacked." And, I'm glad he came to me and said that because, he could have hid it or, not told me about it. But it was a completely, scam thing. It was like, "Hey, we compromised your computer and your phone, and we've been monitoring you for, 4 months. And we have all of these things that you've done. And, you need to pay us this money or else we're going to tell your family and all this other stuff." And it was all bogus. It's one of those, trying to get the lowest commodity thing. His computer wasn't hacked. Trust me, I'm very good at that. But the fact that I've communicated to them enough that they feel comfortable to talk to me, I think is really important. But I can't emphasize enough. I mean, if you look at the data studies on the impact that social media has on our youth, it's alarming. And these sites, regardless if it's TikTok or Instagram, Facebook or X or Twitter, they're all designed to be highly addictive. They're designed to really change our patterns of behavior, get that dopamine release very quickly. And it really changes how kids actually perceive the world. And if you couple that with the threat of China, it's even larger of a threat to me personally.
We are laughing because we also don't want to offer social media. And we had to for the exact same reason that you talked about, that all the teams were talking and the youth groups are all connecting. And unfortunately, they've moved off of text and she had nothing. And then there's an entire other social piece that's missing and another problem there. I'm curious for your thoughts. So we always ask someone, what is your best security tip? And you can also answer that. But before that, there are a lot of people who will say, so what if China has access to that information or it's a Chinese owned company? What do I have that they're going to have access to that really matters? What do you say? I'm sure you might have even had those conversations with people in your circle. What do you say to that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, one, I think we have to look at what has China done in the past that would consider us to have a warrant for concern, right? They're the largest country in the world that steals intellectual property of the United States. We're talking trillions of dollars of intellectual property theft that they continue to really have no rhyme or reason repercussions for. And we deal with these data breaches every single day. I mean, our teams are booting China out of big corporations, stealing intellectual property. And then what China will do is they'll take all of that R&D that we spend, the billions of dollars of R&D to build a new product. They steal all that and they build a competing product for half the price in the United States market, right? So there's a whole bunch of unfair trade advantages that are happening, and they're stealing all this data all the time, on top of all of the stuff that's going on from a cyber warfare capabilities perspective, where they're continuously infiltrating our grid infrastructure, military preparedness, everything else. And a lot of the concerns, if you look at a lot of the folks that are in the know that also talk more on strategy, the impact around Taiwan specifically, if they were to invade Taiwan and we were to respond to that and actually get involved in that, it would make life here extremely difficult for us. You're talking, potentially shutting down electricity or trade routes. If you look from ransomware groups last year, our supply chain was a major part of attack, where they were hitting distribution sites that, send, packages out to people and things like that. So, they're very methodical. And the thing that we have to understand about China is that, in the United States, we have a 4-year election cycle. So our politics, our strategy, and everything that we look at is a 4-year cycle, right? And it's a 4-year cycle of if I'm going to get reelected or not, or a 4-year cycle of if this is all I have and I have to promote the next, political party. Whereas China is looking at it from a 20, 30, 50, 100-year strategy perspective because they have full control over that government. And so they're looking at this from a much longer term strategy perspective, which is much more damaging to us in the long run. So, when you look at the big collections that they can do off of U.S. citizens, they can know everything about where we're at a given time, our spending habits, what is most influential to us, and then start to tweak that and change our entire perception around reality, around what's actually occurring, what's actually not. That has a devastating impact to society, has a devastating impact to us personally, and also the amount of data that they're able to collect on us and our personal information. Yes, is somebody that is working a manufacturing job a prime target for China? No. If you're in DoD, yes. If you're a government contractor, yes. You have a top secret clearance, yes, right? But at the same time, if you look at all the data they're able to do and lump people into specific groups, especially with what we have with artificial intelligence and being able to come all that, you can start to build campaigns against targeted groups to really sway opinion, sway their understanding around geopolitical issues that are occurring, and it can be really detrimental to our freedom here in the United States. It's a major concern that I have both for our short term and our future.
I really appreciate you articulating that. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's nice to have other people's perspectives.
So the part B of Jody's question, as we always like to ask, and we'll be interested for what you have to say, is do you have a best security tip that you would give when you're hanging out at dinner with other IANS faculty members or just friends?
Well, my biggest thing is if you look at almost every single breach that occurs for people, it occurs because of some sort of misuse of passwords, right? For me, it's I always we have this thing called Bionic Night at our local schools, and I also go and I travel to local high schools and speak to I just got done doing one for Louisville High School, which is not in Kentucky, believe it or not, it's in Ohio, Louisville High School, and I had 900 kids there, and they asked me the same question, and for me, it's if you look at a lot of the issues, one, having multi-factor authentication in place everywhere reduces probably 95% of maybe even closer to 98% of all of the breaches that can happen for you personally. But second is, the same password reuse everywhere. So if you have, 5 social media accounts using the same 5 social media passwords, and one of those social media companies gets compromised, well, now they have access to all 5 of your social media accounts, right? I just got done talking to a good friend of mine, literally right before this call, where his Facebook account and Instagram account was taken over because he clicked the link. Now they're getting more crafty in what they do now. So the one that he got was a message from Facebook, and it looked legitimate. And they sent him an email saying, "Hey, your account, detected unauthorized activity. Click here to ensure that it's not." And they basically were able to add an additional authentication mechanism, a number, onto that account just by clicking that link. So you got to be really careful and suspicious around things that are happening. I had one recently that almost got me, believe it or not. It actually came from the security team at github.com. And, so it said security at github.com. I checked, the from, I did my standard, check the from, check everything else, make sure it looks legit, checked and hovered over the link. The link went to GitHub. And what it was doing was they used one of my issues in one of my GitHub projects to generate an email. And when you generate a new ticket in GitHub, it sends the email to the person on record of that owner from security at GitHub. And they formatted the section that they're pretending to modify as an issue. So when I clicked on it, it was actually trying to authorize that account to get access to my container of my GitHub project. And so really well thought out. But, we're seeing these more and more where a lot of these attackers are leveraging very, very crafty types of emails to get access to your account. And then from there, spiraling out. So, multi-factor authentication, passwords are really good. And then being really cautious around the types of emails that you're getting and you're actually accepting, because it can be a complete account takeover at that point.
David, when you are not trying to make the world safer, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, one of my big things in life, is I don't go into something like like just a little bit. When I find a hobby that I enjoy doing, I kind of go all in on it, right? And so one of my favorite ones, I'm actually leaving tomorrow to go to Clarksburg, West Virginia for the weekend with my dad and my two kids. One of my son's friends, as we're playing airsoft all weekend. And I'm a huge airsoft fan. I play airsoft literally every weekend. It kind of gets me back to the military days. But also, with that is staying active in the health and fitness side, right? So for me, it's understanding my body. I had, for the longest time, my entire life, struggled with weight. At one point in time, I was up to 315 pounds, very obese, health issues. I had heart surgery. And I remember the doctor, and this is kind of like one of those like moments in life you look back at, and it was like a catalyst to where I'm at today. The doctor said to me, he's like, listen, if you don't change your habits, you're not going to be around for your kids. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, wow, I'm being selfish about myself on, the unhealthy lifestyles. I would code till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, drink beer or whatever, go out and party with my friends, living a sedentary lifestyle, not being active. And so at that point in time, I decided I need to understand how my body works, and I need to understand how I can course correct this for my future and then for the rest of my life. And so, for me, for fun, I actually, like last night, I was up till like this is late for me, by the way. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I'm usually in bed by like 10:30 now. But I was researching new data studies that came out around, various research. Like there was a new data study that came out yesterday around how the keto diet can help with bipolar disorder. And they did 780 different participants and showed the chemical balances essentially being course corrected with the keto diet in brain activity. So, it's like, to me, understanding my body and understanding how I can improve all the time has been something that I consider one of my big hobbies. And then from there, I've made it into successful businesses. I have a supplements line called Hacking Your Health that we have a pre-workout that's all science-driven, help to optimize your body. We have a whey isolate protein. We're coming out to vegan protein here within the next few weeks. And then I have a testosterone / hormone replacement therapy company that focuses on longevity. So we get your blood work done. We look at your biomarkers. We have doctors on staff that specialize in longevity. And then, you can be perfectly fine and nothing is needed, or we can course correct and help, whether it's, blood pressure, things like that. We look at the core symptoms of why that's there in the first place. Low testosterone levels, we can supplement with that. For me, I found out when I was 38 that I had the testosterone levels of a 75-year-old. And I had all the symptoms. I had brain fog. I was tired all the time. I couldn't put on muscle mass, all of those things. And as soon as I went on testosterone replacement, like all of those symptoms went completely away. I had the energy. I can go out with my kids again. I enjoyed lifting. So it's a matter of, for me, it's my hobbies become like what I go all in on. And then I usually start businesses with them. Like, I have basketball training facilities for kids because my kids were in basketball. And I'm like, well, there's no good basketball training facilities here. And plus I can augment it with technology. So we have these shooting guns that integrates to an app. You can check your data stats on areas that you're weak at from a shooting percentage perspective. You can get 500 balls up every 30 minutes. And then we have, AAU tournaments at these facilities are massive facilities. We have 8 now across the Midwest. And so we continuously are expanding on things like that too. So for me, maybe I'm a serial entrepreneur, but I just invest and do things that I love doing that are my hobbies. And then from there, they just turn out to be businesses sometimes.
Every time I talk to you, I learn something new. Yeah. I did not know about the basketball facilities.
And we have a baseball training facility as well too. So
that's piquing Justin's interest.
Indeed.
Well, David, we're so glad that you came to share all that you did today. If people would like to connect with you and learn more, where should they go? Absolutely. Well, I'm always on social media. I try to stick to X because it's easier. Hacking Dave on X. I'm usually on there, and I always respond to folks. I try to keep an eye on that. I have a protocol where I only look at it 3 times a day. So I stay away from the addiction side of the house, but I do respond back to folks 3 times a day. And then you can always find me at TrustedSec, Binary Defense. And then I'm on Facebook as well. So, reach out anytime and, happy to answer any questions or talk to you in any way. Amazing. Well, David, again, thank you so very much. We really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you too. Appreciate it. I'm glad your dog's doing better, by the way. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and check us out on LinkedIn. See you next time.